Greetings! In this video I'm going to present you a personal project I had a few years ago. But first, let me contextualize by going back more than 13 years ago. In early December 2010, the video game editor Epic Game released a game developed by Chair Entertainment on the App Store. This game was called Infinity Blade, and it is the game you are seeing right now. I was only 10 when its release, but I was already playing it on the iPad of my father, and now is one of my favorite trilogy of game of all time. Trilogy? Yes, a second opus came in 2011 and a third in 2013. And they are each time better than his predecessors. The game was very popular among the US and England, but not much in France because of the dialogue being all in English since the second game. And why not in the first game? Because the first game has its own fictional language at the time, and it sounds like this.
Bonici, Nizoyu Hara Castano.
Di infinity Quapachita. Yosama. Yosama Pini Patado Osapo Novo. Yoso Unado Fortunado. Sefido. Is Janda one Ana di Findata.
But anyway, this trilogy, beside this, has been sold millions of times in the world. But besides this, again, this Infinity Blade was a really great game, with a great gameplay and very interesting story, especially since Infinity Blade 2 and 3. And all this sounds great, right? But it's leaving us until the breaking point. In the late 2018, a tragedy happened to Infinity Blade. Epic Game decided to retire the game from the App Store because of it being only a pay-to-play game. Fiverr to buy each game wasn't making money on long term, and so people were not able to buy it anymore. And only those who already purchased it before were still able to play it. As a last stand, Epic put the main sword of the game, the Infinity Blade, and just by the way, how could I have not talked about this sword before in the video, but anyway. So, as a last stand, when the game was already not purchasable anymore, Epic Game added the sword to Fortnite, a trash thing called a game full of Fortnite kids that didn't understand this ad because they never played any Infinity Blade because they were born too late. But sorry, I'm digressing a lot. At least Infinity Blade fans were still able to play the game. Or should I say, were able. Because with it not on the Apple Store anymore, it was only a matter of time for not being playable on the two recent Apple Mac and the new devices. Now, only by having an old iPad with the game already installed is your only way to play it. Even having purchased it is not letting you download it anymore. And so, the greatest game trilogy of my childhood has now sunk into the darkness of time. That's leading us to the main part of this video, my project itself. The first 10 years anniversary of Infinity Blade was arriving. And the community were still remaining, especially on Discord. And even if nothing about the game was moving outside his own community, it left me an idea. For some years now, with my best friend of high school, we were playing roleplay game, like video game but on paper, very similar to board game, and my friend was creating his own. And all this left me with one of the best projects I had. Recreating Infinity Blade in roleplay games. Starting by its first opus, that I had finished on December of the year 2020, right on time for my friend being able to play it before the 10 years anniversary. And experiencing the game as I've done it 10 years ago at the age of 9. And after more than 30 hours of hard work, the first opus of the game was adapted in roleplay game. And before explaining how these RPG games work and how I've managed to create it, I must tell you more about Infinity Blade itself. Infinity Blade takes place not in the past or a fictional universe, as the image may have you thought, but in our reality, in our future, more than 10,000 years later, at a time where technology still exists, but has more become so rare and advanced that only an elite could afford it. And so, every other people are back in a middle age kind of world. An almost empty world. And after it, us, Cyrus, the main character, a warrior, has only one goal: avenge the death of his father that has been slain by the God King, a tyrant. Our aim is to reach the top of his fortress and defeat him. This is for the basis, but what is really important for now is the gameplay. If I have to create an RPG of a game, I really need to understand the sources material. So, to be short, Infinity Blade is a point and click in some way. You are not controlling the character itself, you see his environment around him, see the object or places you want to interact with, and the characters go toward them when you click on them. This is usual in RPG, but what will giving me hard stuff to work with is the combat system. In Infinity Blade, you use your character in front of your opponent, and this opponent is attacking you. If you do nothing, you will take the damage. And if you just attack the opponent by moving your finger on the screen, you will not deal a lot of damage. And to do some, you have to deal with the enemy attack first. Create an opening by destabilizing the enemy, and after you attack. So, you have three ways to protect you from the enemy. First is the shield. You can use your shield to block the enemy attack. It works most of the time, and it has a small chance of destabilizing the enemy. Then you can attack and do a few damage. But each time you're using your shield, it consumes chill point, and it can't protect you when you don't have shield point anymore. In second is the dodge. It must be well timed to dodge well, but also well anticipated if you have to do dodge to the right or left. And by doing so, the probability of creating an opening are almost the same as some with the shield. And you will be able to do a little bit more of damage. And at last, in third is parrying the enemy attack. It is the most complicated to do, with less chances of creating an opening, but when it does, it with this way that you can do the more damages. There is still a lot to discover in IB combat mechanic, but we have the essential to understand what I did to create my own version of it. And so this is how those three mechanics of protection works, and one of the biggest issue was how statistically transcribe them with dice. And so let me show you with my research at what I came up with. So let me explain you in details how the combat mechanic system works in my game. So this is what we have to see here for understanding how it works. So you have the first here, this column with the three ways of protecting yourself, and we're going to see each of them in detail as fast as I can. So the first one is when you're using your shield to protect from the enemy. So you basically throw a dice, like for all of them. You throw a dice, and you will be protected only if the result is 2 or more than 2. After it, you want to see if you're doing any opening. So you will succeed only if the result is 4 or more than 4. And after it, you have to throw another dice for the damage. And the result can be between 2 or 5. If the result is more than 5, like 6, with the dice, you're presuming it's a 5. And if the result is less than 2, you're presuming it's a 2. And with the result, you are using it to take your normal kind of damage you're supposed to do. Like if you have a player that is doing 5 damage, and as a result of 2, you will do 2 times the damage for the numbers of attack you're doing. After, the dodge system, so you basically always throw your dice. For succeeded, you have to have a result between 3 and more. And for the opening is the same as the shield. You are throwing a dice, but you have a +2. So the result is between 3 and 7. It's like the shield in most of the way. After you have the parry, you're always throwing your dice for the protection. You succeeded as the dodging system for protection always. But here the opening is different. It has to be 5 or 6 to do an opening, so it's much more rare. And after, you can throw 2 dice at the enemy, and the result can be between 4 and 12. So it's the most effective way to deal the most of damage. Many thanks to have watched this video. It's not yet the end, so don't go early. I still have things to say about this project. First, a kind of conclusion or opening to what's next after it. As you see, I talked a lot about more Infinity Blade itself from the project. It was intended because Infinity Blade means a lot to me, so the context of what was the process that bring me to create this project was something that I thought was really important. And even with what I've explained, I think I could have explained way more. So on this, I did my best to mix as doing something short as possible, and with like some jokes and things like that with it, and combine the best to all of it. So I hope you find it useful. And in second, about this project, about the making of it, as you saw, I talk more about just the combat mechanic, but there's a lot of different aspects that has been through the creating of, or more the adapting this game in paper, like doing the leveling system, where I use a lot of mathematic formula, or something that were just more time taking, like creating the kind of shop where you can buy all of the items of the game, like the weapon, the helmet, shield, the armor, and etc. Where it took me the most of the time recreating every item of the game, where it was just something very just very long writing in the Word or Excel document, and it was still interesting. It's bring me a lot to doing this project right here, and I'm now working on the second opus. I already work lots of hours on it, like I think between 10 hours maybe, and I'm not close at all to complete it, because the second one has way more mechanics than the first one. So it will be very long to have the second completed, and the first even more. So there's that. And last thing, at last, I wanted to show something. I have the Infinity Blade in real life. As you can see, this blade is outcast from aluminum. It's not sharp at all. I can't cut anything with it, hopefully. I have it from more than a year now, and I'm really glad I have it. It's one of my achievements of life. So many thanks for listening and watching this video. Hope you have a great time. Bye.